Today we are making a little drawstring playmat thing for my nephew. So I have these 2 fat quarters, and then I have a couple of strips that are 2.5 by width of fabric. You could do this part with scraps, but I just cut them with the fabric in coordinating because I didn't have any scraps that I liked with my fat quarters. So basically, what I'm going to do is line up my 2 fat quarters. I did press them just so that they are nice and crispy. I'm just going to fold it in half and then fold it. So I fold it in half lengthwise, and now I'm going to fold it in half again, kind of making sure that this point here, like you're basically making a circle skirt, like if you've ever made one of those before. And then I'm going to fold it again, so we have kind of this triangle shape. And then I want to make sure that all of these folded points, this point stays nice, these folded edges line up really nice with that folded edge. And then if I was doing this more precise, what I would do is take my measuring tape. I would take a pen and tie string and like do one of those. I am just going to measure this and try to make the biggest circle that I can. I'm just gonna mark this 8.5. That pencil barely shows up. And then pivot, mark that 8.5 again. Mark that 8.5 again, and just keep going all the way. So you're just making a little, and I'm going to connect those lines like that. And since this is pretty thick, I'm going to actually use scissors instead of my rotary cutter and carefully cut along that line. You want to make sure all of your layers stay together. And then you can unfold it. Boom. You have 2 circles. You could do this one at a time and then probably use your rotary cutter, but I didn't want to. All right. So now that that is done, I'm going to take one of my width of fabric, and I'm sure there's some sort of math calculations you could do to make sure you cut it exactly right, but we're not doing that today. I am going to take these over to my machine. I prefer just to sew mine at a 45-degree angle, so this would be great if you have leftover binding. So I'm going to sew that, trim it, and press it, and then we're going to fold that in half like this, and we're going to sew a big basting stitch along this edge because we're going to make a casing. But since this is round and this is not, and we did not cut these on the bias, we need to add a gathering stitch so we can add some ease around this, because this will be a drawstring casing to close the bag when we're done. Okay. Oops. Okay, the other thing I did real quick was I just cut a piece of, this is just sew-in fleece, and then on the outside one, I'm just going to do like a quick quilted spiral. You probably don't need to do this if you use like a fusible interfacing or something, but I didn't feel like using fusible. So then I'm going to take my binding strips and sew a diagonal line, and then I'm going to fold over and sew one of the long ends, or sorry, one of the short ends, and then I kind of measured it around to see how long it needed to be, and then I just put like a basting gathering stitch on there. Okay, it's later, whatever. Here we go. So we have this piece that is quilted. Now we're gonna make a little sandwich with our piece that we gathered. I'm gonna clip that so the raw edges are kind of lined up here, easing around that like gathered ease stitch that we did. And then I'm just gonna do that and put clips, kind of let that go all the way around. And then once I get that done, I'm gonna take the lining piece and kind of do the same thing. Okay, and then once you have that sandwiched, I kind of cheated here and just lined up my lining piece and just did a few clips. It was okay. And then I went around and sewed that together, and I did leave about 3-inch section so I could turn it right side out.
And then I took it over to my ironing board and I gave it a good press. You do still want to make sure that everything is kind of laying flat as you go, and then I just made sure that I didn't miss anything. And then depending on where you put your gap, you need to make sure that you fold down all your layers and you get that nice and smooth, and top stitch all the way around, and then you're going to close up that opening while you top stitch. I did this about an 1/8 of an inch away from the edge. And then went through and trimmed up all of my threads and made sure everything looked nice and presentable.
Okay, the final step is to string your drawstring. So I'm just using some paracord. I chose some gray, and I'm using my little threader tool to put this all around. You just want to make sure that when you do this, you make sure that your paracord is long enough, or ribbon or whatever you want to use, so that when your little playmat bag can lay flat. Okay, so I have my paracord nice and flat, and then I like to burn the ends, so I will like pull the outer piece so you get all of these little core pieces, and then I trim those, pull the outer cord, and then burn the ends. But I'm gonna actually finish doing that in just a second once I put it through my little cord thing. I don't remember what these are called, because once I burn that, that's gonna make it harder to fit through. And then the other thing I'm gonna do is once it goes through here, oops, this way, I'm going to tie a knot and then kind of burn the ends. I'm kind of running out of time. So, all right, and then there it is, all cinched up for his birthday. So I just put his present inside. But yeah, it turned out really cute, and then that folds out and it turns into a little playmat.